Well, hello and welcome to the Smells Like Money podcast. Join me, Suzan Chin Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, as I interview guests who are making an impact on how we manage and operate systems for conveying and treating wastewater. As a veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry, each week I'll be bringing you industry know-how from industry pros who know how. Join me each week as I speak with representatives of organizations that are utilizing disruptive or new technologies and methods, and executives who are excited to share how to be successful and sustainable in our vital industry. So whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology, in treatment or trenchless, gain tips on training and retaining great talent, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Ready? Let's dive right in. This week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast is sponsored by Welcome to the Future of Industrial Automation with Riot SCADA. Take command of your operations like never before. From oil and gas to energy grids, Riot SCADA adapts to your industry, providing a seamless and powerful solution. Monitor, analyze, and control your processes with ease. Their intuitive interface puts the power of information at your fingertips. With scalability to grow with your business, customization to meet your unique needs, and remote access for control anytime, anywhere, they empower your control and drive your success. The future of industrial automation is here. Transform the way you operate with Riot SCADA. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. We are continuing our series on safety and visiting with Stu Campanen of Workplace Safety Specialist. Boy, that's a mouthful. So thank you for hanging in there with me, Stu, and continuing with this series. And we're rounding out our series with what I thought was a really interesting topic that, Stu brought to the table, and that is the industrial athlete. And I said, so what do you mean by that, Stu? And he brought up the subject of ergonomics and how this plays in a wastewater industry setting. And most of us think about, ergonomics as that thing for the office worker, that clerk that's in the billing department, like, is her desk at the right height? Is her keyboard right? Is the mouse comfortable? We think about those types of electronic ergonomics, but many of us don't think about ergonomics as it relates to field work, and especially in this industry. And Stu cited, I'm going to let him explain this to you, audience, that the majority of injuries and expensive injuries that occur in our industry are ergonomically related. And I found that very, very shocking, simply because of some simple things of people not understanding how the body actually works, how the body moves in the workspace, and how with just knowing some very specific things that maybe most of us might think is common sense, but we don't think about it, could really help us stay healthier and not get injured so that we can have a full, happy lifestyle, at work and as well as at home. And so with that, I'm going to open the floor to you, Stu, to kind of take us through all these different things that you shared with me before we came on the show about ergonomics and the body movement and how that relates to our industry and what people need to know to keep themselves safe.
Yeah, no, this is one near and dear to my heart. And thank you again for having me. Much appreciated. And yeah, it's, when you think about injuries in the workplace, the industrial workplace, wastewater treatment, utility workers, contractors supporting and remodeling or construction in wastewater, we think of those big catastrophic fell 20 feet off of a scaffold or got their arm cut by a piece of heavy equipment, something to that matter. And yeah, those are important, but the frequency just isn't there, right? So there's often some severity there, but there's not a lot of frequency there. And the frequency and severity, and I'm not going to go through the whole risk calculation because that'd be a whole different segment to do. But with ergonomic injuries, and we also can call them musculoskeletal injuries, happen to the body much more frequently and can be severe in an acute case, which means happens like that, right? Like I lift something too heavy and I rupture something in my back, right? That would be acute. Or we have chronic long-term use of someone who's in this confined space every day for 2 hours, checking gauges, reaching up over their head, manipulating. That just really creates that chronic repetitive use, kind of like you mentioned, the keyboarding accountant or things like that. Well, that happens for our industry as well. And people doing that, someone that's, moving things in the warehouse at the plant all day long, sitting in that forklift, and the vibration from the steering wheel of that forklift. All of those things are ergonomic musculoskeletal disorder injuries. And, it's expensive, and it's by far, I'm not going to sit here and quote a bunch of Department of Labor statistics. Anyone can Google those and they'll see that musculoskeletal disorders are primary. It's why you have 1 million chiropractors out there and a physical therapy clinic on every other clinic, and the Concentras of the world and the urgent cares and all great institutions. But it's why it's so prevalent, because this is such an epidemic in the workplace. And there's ways to prevent that, like you mentioned, and many things we can do to prevent those things. And they're not big things, right? It can be like, does your workforce participate in a 5 to 10 minute pre-shift stretch and flex routine? And it doesn't take much for us, a consultancy, to draw it up, but save yourself some money and Google some workplace stretches and flexes and warm-up exercises, and you would be surprised the effect that can have on your body. And, then you start considering things like adding here in Arizona heat stress, which just compiles the problem musculoskeletal disorders, because now you have heat-related illness, cramping, dehydration, which all contributes to how the body functions and how the body functions in space. You just think about the tools and the equipment that these workers are working with daily, installing, renovating, adjusting, all those things. And then you consider these spaces that they work in, trenches and pits and vaults and towers, and just it goes on. A lot of them confined spaces, right? And they're marked as confined spaces, and one of the primary hazards in that space could make it a permit required confined space, might simply be the configuration of that workspace. Almost every water plant, vault, wherever you're at in there, there's piping all over the floor, all over the walls, all over the ceiling, right? Am I going to trip? And if I do trip, am I able to catch myself? Do I have good balance? Do I have sense of my body in space where I'm at? Should I be kneeling to do this task instead of bending over? And if I am kneeling, should I have knee pads on so there's not that compact impact force of me kneeling on this concrete slab for 4 hours, reinstalling or installing this new pump, right? So all these things start to accumulate and create this chronic illness. So that's a biggie. And then back to the acute illness, something that happens really quickly, is quite often a function of how personally I move in space, how my body responds. Am I flexible? Am I overweight? Am I hydrated? Do I have enough nutrition? Have I had enough sleep? Right? Is my mind in this? If I didn't get enough sleep last night, we all have stress in our lives. I didn't sleep and I'm at work and I'm just not moving like I would normally move. My ergonomics are compromised. The next thing I know, I'm reaching up overhead to pick something up I thought was 10 pounds and it's actually 40 pounds. And there goes my rotator cuff. So all of these things daily, I guarantee you any of us can go out on the workplace site and see how people's bodies are moving for their job And if I can create, to use that term I like, create a more athletic performance in those people, the better. And this doesn't mean they need to be out there doing sprints and jumping jacks and bench presses and all these things. Yeah. But this type of work is physical. We all know that. So how can I make it better, not just for my workplace performance, but when I go home at night, my back's aching, I don't want to go outside and play with the dog because I'm just too tired from work.
It impacts your life at home as well.
Correct.
So what are some easy ways? Because when you were saying the calisthenics, I know quite a few people in the industry, as people know. I can't imagine some of them, if you say, okay, we need to do stretching and calisthenics, or I want you to start doing yoga every day, they'd probably look at me like I had 3 heads and 16 eyeballs. So what are some of the ways that, knowing the temperament, knowing the type of people that we have in the industry, ways that they can become more of an industrial athlete without, let's just say, I'm taking a spin class every day. No, but what are some little simple things that they could make part of their daily routine? Maybe that was a great thing about stretching for 5 minutes before you begin. But what are some things that they can do at the start of the day, maybe at the break, maybe so many hours, or maybe at the end of the day? Just little simple things that even someone that maybe is a few pounds overweight or is over 50, that can't move like the 20-year-old, that they can make part of their daily life at work that can help them be that industrial athlete, to keep them out of the urgent care or the emergency room or having to visit the chiropractor 3 times a week.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot. And thank you for bringing up that point between the different demographics, because we have a wide range of demographics in our industry. And, you get someone that's young and in relatively good shape, and they're like, I don't need that. I go to the gym 4 times a week after work, blah, 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 blah. But, it starts at home when you wake up. Are you coming to work hydrated, right? That immediately affects your musculoskeletal system. Are you nourished, right? Do you have enough nourishment in you? Is that helping? But then once I get that, we lead such sedentary lifestyles now, even in this industry, it's become more sedentary. Well, we're one of the more active industries. A lot of work is, become technological, and we're doing on pads, and we can turn pumps off from the control room rather than at the valve. So I get all that, but there's still that regular activity. So it's some of the simple things we can do after I wake up and get to work in the morning. I have we're rolling out a program. It's relatively new, but not new, because a lot of us have experience. My primary instructor in this, has a degree in kinesiology, is a certified personal trainer, a certified yoga instructor. And so can really give some quick and simple, and we're not talking, again, it's not a 45-minute workout before work. We're going to warm up for 4 or 5 minutes, because that's a mistake a lot of people make, is they start stretching before their body's even warm. And the musculature just isn't as flexible when it's cold as when it's warm. So we warm up, then we do some of these simple stretches to get those major muscle groups, the low back, the upper back, the shoulders, hamstrings, quadriceps, all these things we use that we don't think of. People who use tools all the time, things as simple as, I see my hands ache at the end of the day. Well, that's because you're gripping this tool all day like this. So you know what? Take 3 minutes at lunchtime and just do something as simple as this, right? Create an opposite movement to what you're consistently doing all day, and your body responds, and your body really likes it. So it's not this huge deal, but 4 or 5 minutes of warm up, another 5 to 7 minutes of stretching and some functional movement before work makes a huge difference. And then, after lunch, it's important as well, because all of a sudden we're done. We've been working outside. It's 87 degrees out, and, it's warm and we're sweaty. And I go to the break room, and it's 68 in there because we got the air conditioner cranked. And all of a sudden, all that musculature just cools back down. And right? So then I'd go back out to work again, and the body's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So maybe not as rigorous as when I started work, but after lunch, just take a couple more minutes, right? Do a couple of calf raises, get that body move, get that blood flowing to your lower extremities, things like that. Something as simple as maybe just loosen your boot laces at lunchtime, right? Like we want them tight so our ankles are protected and whatnot. Loosen those, create different blood flow patterns. Put your legs up, let that blood that's been collecting because you've been standing all day come back towards your core, things like that. And then, as you mentioned, the end of the day, right? Don't just go home, long day, lay on the couch and sit there for 4 hours and have a big heavy meal, right? Drink some more water, have something nutritious to eat. I'm not saying don't have your burger. I love burgers, but have something nutritious to eat and go in and make it fun. Get with the dog in the backyard, get with the kids, do some stretches, and your overall work life is going to be better, but your overall lifestyle is going to improve. And I know it sounds, again, a little bit silly, but you will start feeling more athletic. We're not trying to create, Olympic athletes here, but if I can just get your body to move a little better in space, you're going to notice the difference. And it doesn't take a long time. You're going to notice the difference in a few weeks.
Well, and you said something earlier about just the movements, is that just because you go to the gym and work out, 4 times a week, doesn't necessarily mean what you're doing at the gym translates to the movements that you have to make at your job in a wastewater treatment plant. So understanding those movements that are going to affect your body on your job versus the gym, I see, there's a big difference.
Yeah. A huge difference. And then here's where it gets near and dear to my heart in a good way, but also in a one of those hard lessons you learn in life, right? Like that's what I did for years. I played sports, heavy weightlifting, did all the stuff, figured I don't need to do all this stuff. I've been training. I've done all this stuff all my life, but it wasn't functional. Putting hundreds of pounds on your back and squatting up and down looks really cool. It might get you a date because the girls are impressed. I don't know, but it's not what we do at work. And what I do at work is take 5,000 steps and I kneel and I bend over and I have to twist and I have to lift, and I'm in the gym lifting things straight up and down over my head. Well, I'm not at work doing this. I'm at work reaching and lifting and turning and lifting. And how do I functionally move in space? And there's a ton of studies over the past 15, 20 years, the study of kinesiology and biomechanics and all those things that some of our experts have, that they studied and went to school for, that teach a body how to move properly and functionally, and not just in this linear thing that a lot of those young buff studs that we have in this industry are at the gym doing. Again, it looks great, but moving something in one direction linearly versus laterally and diagonally just isn't what we do at work.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing those differences and pointing that out. So if there's anybody out there listening who is interested in learning more about some of the things that you do as far as teaching people how to be an industrial athlete and to prevent those workplace injuries, how can they get a hold of you to learn more, Stu?
That can be found on our website, which is workplacesafetyspecialists.org. You can also contact me via email at STUK at workplacesafety.org. And then direct cell phone number 602-540-2335. And if I can't answer a question for you, there's probably someone in our organization that can.
Well, Stu, I can't thank you enough for doing this series of episodes. It's been absolutely great information for those of you out there listening. Hope you got something out of it and follow up on it to, help keep the industry safe and healthy and protected. Because for me, thank you for your service. The people who work in this industry, as Stu said earlier, you do difficult, dirty, hard, physical jobs. And it's important to all of us out here who benefit from what you do to make sure that you are kept healthy and safe so that you have a good time at work, but you also are able to have a healthy lifestyle when you finish your work day and you go home to your families. So again, Stu, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for tuning in, listeners. And until next time, keep it flowing. And a very special thank you again to this week's episode's sponsor. Welcome to the future of industrial automation with Riot SCADA. Take command of your operations like never before. From oil and gas to energy grids, Riot SCADA adapts to your industry, providing a seamless and powerful solution. Monitor, analyze, and control your processes with ease. Their intuitive interface puts the power of information at your fingertips. With scalability to grow with your business, customization to meet your unique needs, and remote access for control anytime, anywhere, they empower your control and drive your success. The future of industrial automation is here. Transform the way you operate with Riot SCADA. Thanks so much for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of Smells Like Money. What stood out to you this week? Share your takeaways by leaving me a review. You can find out more about the new technologies, creating sustainable solutions, and insights on how to succeed in our vital industry by subscribing to the show. Whether you want to learn about the latest trends in wastewater infrastructure, treatment, or trenchless, you've got it all right here at Smells Like Money. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest for the show, book a quick chat with me by visiting calendly.com/the2it group/B-A-podcast-guest, or simply click the link in the show notes below. Until next week, a big shout out to all my industry friends and those who will be. You are my superheroes. Thanks for tuning in, keeping it flowing, and we'll see you all next week.